It's time for a mid-year book tag video. Before we get started, my name is Emily if you're new here, and I just want to say thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you like it. I love mid-year book tag videos or just wrap-up videos in general, and I was inspired to make this video by watching Sarah Hawley's most recent video, or one of her recent videos, where she did a mid-year book tag. So I took those prompts and copied and pasted them into the description of this video, and those are the prompts we're going to be using for today's video. I also added one of my own to the book tag just to mix things up and to, kind of make it my own. If you're watching this, hopefully we find some books that we have in common, and if we do, let me know in the comments. Maybe we have similar taste in books, or I loved a book that maybe you didn't like, so I would love to talk about that. Let's just get right into it. I'm going to have to do a little bit of organization here because this pile is not really organized right now in any particular way. I typically read romance and fantasy books, and I also like to throw in the occasional literary fiction and thriller. I actually haven't read too many thrillers yet this year, so that is one of my goals for the rest of 2025, is to try and mix up my genres a bit. The first tag of the mid-year book tag is the best book I've read in 2025. And this one was really hard because I feel like best is subjective. I feel like I rate fantasy books and romance books and literary fiction different. Sometimes like a 5-star literary fiction book isn't on the same level as a 5-star fantasy book to me. And it just kind of depends on the genre. So this one was hard and I was trying to be subjective. I think the best book I've read in 2025 is Children of Fallen Gods by Carissa Broadbent. And I actually don't have this one in my pile. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. This one is actually a library book and it's super overdue, so it's been sitting by my front door for a while. I was actually shocked to find an original cover of Children of Fallen Gods at the library a few weeks ago. I was reading this on my Kindle because it is on Kindle Unlimited, and I had gone to the library to check something else out when I found this, and I was floored because if you know, these are currently out of print and they're going to be releasing new covers when this series is traditionally published. I think that this was the best book that I've read in 2025 because there were so many elements to it that surprised me. I feel like it was really well written. I feel like the characters really developed throughout the course of this book. This is the second book in the War of Lost Hearts trilogy. I had really been itching to jump into a very immersive fantasy series, and this one kind of hit the spot. I feel like it was right book, right time, and that is kind of why I'm classifying this as the best book that I've read in 2025 so far. The next one is the best sequel that I've read so far this year. And I cheated a bit on this one because I did pick one prequel, and that is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, which is obviously the prequel that just came out in March of the Hunger Games trilogy, and this one follows Haymitch's story. I had done a full Hunger Games reading vlog where I reread the original trilogy before this one had come out, and I was engrossed in this book from the very first page. I feel like it really speaks to Suzanne Collins' writing ability that we kind of know what happens in this book, but I was still able to be fully engaged throughout the entire story, even though we know how these games end, right? This is Haymitch's story. We know what happens from the original trilogy. As an adult, revisiting this world was kind of an amazing experience, and I'm really happy that I read this one. This isn't really a sequel, it's a prequel, so I picked this one, and then I also picked another one for this prompt, which is Enchantra by Kaylee Smith. So this one is the sequel to Phantasma that had come out last year, and this is in the Wicked Games. I thought it was going to be a duology, but I think it's actually going to be a trilogy. So I think there is going to be another book that comes out in this series. This is a romantasy series, but there is a subplot of these games that happen throughout both of the books in this duology so far. And I was obsessed with Phantasma last year. The male main character in Phantasma was probably my fictional crush from last year. I wasn't sure if it would hold up as well as Phantasma did, and it definitely did. I think I ended up liking this one a bit more than Phantasma, which was very surprising because, like I said, I loved Phantasma a lot. So it was really nice to be surprised and enjoy a sequel as much as I enjoyed the first book in this duology or trilogy. Next, I have a new release that I haven't read yet, but I want to, and I picked Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid for this one. This one came out earlier in June, and this follows female astronauts in the 80s, and I'm really excited to read this one. I kind of love all things space and NASA and things like that, so this one feels like it's right up my alley. I'm really excited to read this one, and it's been a while since we've had a new release from Taylor Jenkins Reid, so I'm actually hoping to get to this one this week, so maybe by the time this video is up, I will have read this by then, but if not, this is coming up soon on my TBR. Next, I have my most anticipated release for the second half of this year, and that is, of course, Brimstone by Callie Hart. I was absolutely obsessed with Quicksilver last year. I feel like that one got so much hype, and in my personal opinion, it is well deserved. That is my favorite fantasy romance book that I've read in quite some time. I don't know what it was about it, but I was just immediately sucked in. I wanted to find out so bad what was happening. I loved our female main character, and I loved how book one ended on a note where it had me excited to read the next one, but I wasn't feeling like despair, if that makes sense. But of course, I'm so excited for Brimstone because I was absolutely obsessed with Quicksilver. I'm so excited for that one. And then also, I'm looking forward to Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. That takes place in the same world as the Divine Rivals duology, which was one of my favorite books from 2023, I think. Was it that long ago already? It must have been. No, it was last year. Yeah. Okay, I loved Divine Rivals, and Wild Reverence just takes place in the same world but follows a different story, so I'm excited to jump back into that world. Next, I have the biggest surprise, and that was Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. So earlier this year, my fiance and I started the TV show of this book on Apple TV, and I really liked the first episode, so I asked if we could pause watching it so I could read this. And then the next day, we were in DC for a wedding, and I went to a used bookstore, and they had this, and it was only like $4. So I was very excited about picking this one up, and it took me a few weeks to read it, but when I did, I finished it in 2 sittings, and I was absolutely obsessed with it. I had to just keep reading it to find out what happened. This is a sci-fi book, but I feel like at its core, this is more a story of family and devotion and love. I just loved our male main character and how he would do everything to get back to his family. I gave it 5 stars. I couldn't believe how much I loved this book. I really thought that I would just be reading it to, you know, kind of prep for the TV show, and it ended up being one of my favorite books from the first half of this year. And it's a genre that I don't typically read, so that was also a good surprise as well. Next up, I have favorite author from the first half of this year, and it can be either a debut author or someone that's new to me. So I actually picked Liz Tomforde because I had never read the Windy City series until earlier this year, and I went out of order, and I kind of wish I didn't. I had started with Play Along, and then I jumped back to the beginning and went to Mile High, and I've also read Caught Up, no, I've read The Right Move since I started that series. I wasn't expecting to love this sports romance series as much as I did, and I've already read 3 books by her, and I'm definitely going to read the other 2 throughout the rest of this year. So Liz Tomforde was kind of an easy choice for my favorite author from the first half of this year. Next is my newest fictional crush, and this was a really easy choice. That is Maxantarius Farlione from the War of Lost Hearts trilogy. I already talked about Children of Fallen Gods. There's a line in this book where another character says that bleeding heart will get you killed one day, and I just feel like that embodies Maxantarius so well. I just really loved reading about him. He kind of reminded me of Dorian from Throne of Glass, and I just really loved this whole trilogy and our male main character and our female main character, and this trilogy just meant a lot to me from the first half of this year. I'm so glad I read it because I was really just looking for a fantasy book to dive into, and this totally hit the spot. It was right book, right time, and I really loved it. Next up, I have a book that made me cry, and for this one, I picked The Nightingale by Kristen Hannah. I don't typically read historical fiction, and I read this one for a book club, and this is another one that I honestly just flew through because I was so engrossed in the story, and I really just needed to know where it was going. In this one, we follow 2 sisters in World War II era France, and as you can imagine, it's very emotional. It's honestly kind of hard to read at times because of the topic that it deals with, and it did make me cry because, like I said, it's very emotional and it's a tough topic to read about, but I feel like it handled the topic with care, and it was really worth the read. I will definitely be reading more books by Kristen Hannah. I had already read one by her, but I'm definitely going to start picking up some more of her historical fiction books because I feel like she does a great job of handling very sensitive topics with care and making sure that these characters' stories are true to, you know, the actual event that happened, and just making sure that it's handled with love and care. And then on the opposite side of that, we have a book that made me happy, and that was One Golden Summer by Carley Fortune. I was truly obsessed with this book, and I was kind of shocked because I had only read Every Summer After by Carley Fortune before picking this one up, and I wasn't even really interested in this one, but I was seeing such great things about it, so I did end up picking it up because I thought, why not give Carley Fortune's books another chance? And I'm so glad I did because I was so obsessed with this. I can't even pinpoint why. In this book, both the main characters are going through something and their romance is developing as they're dealing with these things that they're going through. I loved Charlie. I loved Alice. I really loved the setting that this book takes place at. It takes place at a lake, and it's just the perfect setting to read over the summer when you're also maybe on the beach or at a lake or something like that. And yeah, I'm just truly obsessed with One Golden Summer by Carley Fortune. So this one definitely made me happy. If you haven't read it yet, I would recommend picking it up. Okay, next up I have the most beautiful book that I've bought or received this year. And I haven't really gotten many like special editions this year, but when I ordered The Knight and the Moth a few months ago as a pre-order, I did order the Barnes & Noble special edition. So I picked this one as the most beautiful book that I've received or bought because I just love this cover in general. And then this one comes with very pretty sprayed edges. The inside end papers are also just beautiful. They have like some moth prints on it, and I don't know, I just think this is a really beautiful edition from Barnes & Noble of this book, and I also did really enjoy this book, and it was one that I was looking forward to. So this one was an easy choice for the most beautiful book that I've bought or received. And then I also have what books I need to read by the end of this year. So first up, I recently bought Babel by RF Kuang. This is one book that I want to read by the end of this year, but I'm saving it for October, November time period because I feel like this book is very fall coded. It is a dark academia fantasy book, and I just want to read this one kind of when the weather gets colder. I feel like that is the perfect vibes to read Babel during. And also just in this same prompt, I want to finish the Windy City series this year, and I also want to read The City of Brass. This is a trilogy as well, so the first book in a trilogy, and this is another fantasy book that I just want to read by the end of this year because, like I said, I've really just been craving fantasy books recently, and I wanted to just totally dive into a world that I can be completely immersed in and don't really need to wait for the other books to come out. I don't want to have to wait for a new release. All 3 books in the City of Brass trilogy are currently out, so this is one that I'm hoping to read by the end of this year, maybe towards like end of August, early September. The next prompt is how many 5-star books I've read this year, and I've actually read 11, and that includes Play Along by Liz Tomforde, The Nightingale, which we've already talked about. I reread all 3 of the original Hunger Games books, so I gave those all 5 stars as well, plus the new release of Sunrise on the Reaping, so that's up to 6. I also gave 5 stars to Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales, which is the 3rd book in the Emily Wilde trilogy that came out earlier this year. I gave 5 stars to Dark Matter, which I already talked about, and Children of Fallen Gods. And I also gave 5 stars to the 3rd book in that same trilogy, which is called Mother of Death and Dawn. I also gave 5 stars to One Golden Summer. So those are the 11 books that I gave 5 stars to this year, and that's out of 36 books total that I've read throughout this year so far. So I feel like we're doing pretty good. That's about like a 33% success rate, which is pretty good. And then the next prompt is if there's any books that I want to reread this year. And I'm not typically one to reread books. If I do reread books, I usually do the audiobook the second time around because it's kind of a new way to experience the story. So if I do reread any books, I want to reread Quicksilver by Callie Hart before the next book comes out. But I've already listened to that audiobook, so it'll be my 3rd reread of that book, which I'm not mad about because, like I said, I'm absolutely obsessed with that one. And I also would like to reread If We Were Villains by ML Rio. This book is honestly a masterpiece in my opinion, and because I was so interested to find out what happened in this book, I feel like I kind of rushed through it, and this seems like the kind of book where upon a second read, I would learn a lot more and I'd see things that I didn't really see in my first read of this book. This book follows 7 Shakespearean theater students, and as a former AP Literature and Language student and theater kid, I truly ate this one up because there was just so much to this story, and the way that Shakespeare was kind of like woven into this story was just so interesting, and I haven't really read a book like this before. It was just one of a kind in my opinion, and I would love to reread this one. Next, I have a book that I enjoyed that has mixed reviews, and I'm not sure if this has mixed reviews, but I feel like I saw a lot of people who didn't really enjoy this one as much as they thought they would, and that is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I feel like I've seen some mixed reviews about this one. People were a little let down by it. I definitely liked Funny Story from Emily Henry's release last year more than this one. This one follows 2 writers who are kind of competing to write the biography of this socialite who kind of fell out of the public eye many years before. Reading the story about Margaret, who was the socialite, and the two writers, and how they kind of intersected throughout the story was really interesting. I definitely think I was more interested in Margaret's story towards the end, more so than our main characters, but it didn't mean I didn't enjoy it. I still liked this one, and I think I gave it like 4 or 4.5 stars. So this is one that I think I've seen some mixed reviews on, but I still enjoyed it. Okay, also I have some 5-star predictions for the second half of this year. First, I have The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. And second, I have Servant of Earth by Sarah Hawley. These are 2 5-star predictions I have. I saw these in Hallie's most recent videos. She owns the Common Room shop, and these are 2 books that she's been raving about, so that's why I added these to my TBR, and I feel like we have pretty similar taste, so I feel like these 2 are going to be some 5 stars for myself as well, or at least I hope. So these are 2 5-star predictions, and also I do have to give a quick shout out to Brimstone again, which is the second book in Quicksilver, which comes out later this year. Of course, I feel like I'm going to give that one 5 stars because I was obsessed with Quicksilver. And then I just wanted to add one more tag to this mid-year book tag, and that is the best audiobook that I've read. I chose The Favorites by Layne Fargo for that, which is a documentary style book that follows 2 elite figure skaters and their like kind of downfall from the public eye. And because it's told in documentary style, I feel like it made a great audiobook. Definitely recommend it. It's very twisty and turny. If you liked Daisy Jones and the Six, but like are looking for more of like a sports figure skater vibe there, this is a great option. All right, and that is it for our mid-year book tag video. I love making these kinds of videos and just sitting down and talking about books, so I hope you liked it. If you did, please do all those classic YouTube things like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.